everyone. Welcome to Moments Off the Mat. My name is Jessica Medina. I am the Women's Developmental Coach here at USA Wrestling. And today I am excited to do this episode with Joan Fulp. She has been such a huge role within the wrestling community, women's wrestling at each level. And I've personally known her for many years, and I'm excited to just have her share what she's doing with everyone else. So, Joan, welcome to.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be here with you, Jessica.
Yes, I'm loving it. It's great. So, Joan is phenomenal. I'm going to brag on you just for our little intro. She wears tons of hats. She has been is wrestling mother, wrestling wife. She has worked with many levels from youth all the way to senior level. Right now, she is currently working with sanctioning at the high school level for girls and, many other things. So as we get going, I'll have her share those. But just wanted to give you guys a little intro on her family. Her husband was Lee Allen, and he was a two-time Olympian. He was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2018 and was a huge promoter of women's wrestling. And then her daughters, Sarah and Catherine, both whom I know and got to wrestle, were multiple-time national team members. Catherine is still currently competing, so really excited for you, Joan. And then Joan herself was inducted into the California chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and she was a recipient, along with Andrea, of the Dan Gable America Needs Wrestling. And so I'm just gonna share some of those. And Joan, thank you so much just for all you do, and just to share here. So here's Joan and her daughter Sarah. And Andrea Yamamoto and Joan here, recipients of that award last year. And then, Joan, if you want to share what some of these pictures are.
Yeah, the lower picture is with Lee. Of course, Lee passed away in 2012, but he was a Menlo coach and started the Menlo College team probably in 2000. Both girls graduated from there, and we were just a family there, and very much honored that in 2018, Lee was inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. So yeah, both girls there, along with our granddaughter, Sophie.
There she is.
There she is, yeah.
Future wrestler, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. She'll be on the mat at some point in time. Oh, World University.
And then I found this one.
Yeah, World University Games. That was in 2008. Both Sarah and Catherine won University World Team Trials in the U.S. and went on to win gold and silver at the World University Championships in Thessaloniki, Greece. So that was a fun and exciting trip to go to. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, first sisters in the U.S. to.
As far as I know, the first sisters to represent the U.S. on an international team, without a doubt. Yeah.
Amazing. So awesome family. Again, you guys, I will say, enjoy everyone I've met in your family, and it's been really cool to get to know you guys. So
thank you, Jessica. Yeah.
So, first I want to talk about just the recent events of you being elected to the USA Wrestling Board of Directors and being the first woman to be elected. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, what an honor. What an honor. And I guess for me, I'm more than willing to serve. So it is quite an honor to be the first female elected to the executive board. I did serve for 2 years as an at-large position. And just to let everybody know, we had a year ago at the board meeting in Denver, we had a representative of the USOPC come and talk to us about USA Wrestling being a part of those governing bodies. And she talked about how USA Wrestling was probably the most exemplary board compared to all the other, I know there's other great governing bodies that send teams to the Olympics, but USA Wrestling was a role model for the USOPC. So that made me so proud to hear how well we are respected. The other part is I'm just excited to be the person that's been able to open that door to the executive committee. We have so many young ladies that are just becoming great leaders on the sport. And with the growth we've had, we will undoubtedly see so many young women taking more and more positions on the board. And I love it. Andrea always talks about, we need to be visible. We need more women involved, and we just need more women at the table. So let's just let the table get bigger. That's probably the, one point that we can talk about. Just get the table bigger and invite lots of women on board. Yeah.
I agree with you, and congratulations on that. And again, thank you for paving the way and opening that door. And I agree. I think there's a lot of women who do want to be involved, and seeing you as a role model and an example, it is sometimes all it takes. So I'm excited to see what can inspire from that. And then are there any maybe hopes or goals that you have while on the committee?
Hopes and goals on the committee. Well, number one, being on that committee, the committee's goal or the executive committee's role is really to exercise any policies and procedures between board meetings. The executive committee is 13 members, which represents Junior Olympic Wrestling Committee, athletes representatives, the 5 people on that executive committee. So we serve wrestling as a whole. So that's the first piece of that, is that we serve wrestling with all 3 sports and styles. But for me, my goal and my hope is to reach out to as many of the committee leaders and be able to hear their concerns. I'm starting to do that now, reaching out to not only the women, but also the men that hold positions in USA Wrestling, understand their goals, understand the organization more in depth, and just being able to understand what their needs are. And then for me, as a female and as someone who's been working with the high school level and growing that sport, helping them understand the awareness of girls wrestling and what's going on nationwide. I think that's so critical. Sometimes we want girls wrestling just to be there, like it's there now, it should be there, but we still need to realize we're growing. So I think to help guide that process and to bring more awareness to state leaders and state organizations, as well as each of the sport committees, so that we all work together. Andrew and I, years back in one of our presentations, we said, the key to growing wrestling, that's our entire sport, is right in front of us. And the women are going to help open the doors, get more eyes visible on the sport, and we are going to help grow that sport. So for me, that's an exciting part, to bring more of that awareness to that executive board and to the board as a whole.
I think that's phenomenal, and you're the person to do it. And really relay that. I think the communication piece is so big, between the work that you're doing and serving on that committee and getting that message out. And I think that's great. I can only imagine too, I mean, you've been around this sport for how long?
Well, sometimes when I'm speaking to people, I go, I went to my first world championship, actually it was probably 43 years ago. Junior Worlds in Las Vegas. I was thinking about Mexico City in 78, but Junior Worlds in Las Vegas. And so I kind of think, wow, that's a long time. They're probably going, who is that lady? Been around that long. But yeah, exciting to be a part of wrestling for that long and to see a lot of the evolution and just to see the growth of girls wrestling through all these years. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So again, the wisdom that you bring to this position, again, wearing so many different hats and roles, and the decades of just seeing the organization transition, seeing the sport transition, and the input that you can give is really invaluable. So I again appreciate you and really communicating, I think, overall with everyone in the sport, like you said, between female and male and growing the entire sport. So.
Right. And I have to give a shout out to everybody across the nation that's giving us, Andrea and I, input, along our journey. It's almost been 5 years now. And for us, we just thank everybody at the grassroots level. I mean, we're collecting data, we're sharing ideas, but now it's exploding everywhere in so many coaches are sharing ideas and young ladies are sharing their ideas, just how she wrestles, just to see that out there. So we are, and the growth of girls wrestling at the youth level, we're now seeing young boys and girls growing through the sport together. And it won't be that, what, girls wrestle? There's a girl that wants to be on our team. They're gonna realize girls have been in the sport forever. Even though, and we do have to look at it this way, there's one part of that I do want to bring up, and that is, boys have been in the sport for decades. Girls are still new. And so that's just a piece that we need to keep in our memories and our understanding, is that while boys have had access to skill, to sports skill in many areas, they've had access to coaching and weight training, a lot of our women are coming on board with just stepping in the door the first time going, what? I could be in the sport? I have never even competed in a sport. Think of our upper weights. I've never been in a sport before, and wrestling has a place for me. So we also need to be aware of that as we develop those programs and educate our coaches and guide these young ladies and their male counterparts towards developing more programs for girls.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we hear more and more stories. More states are getting sanctioned. But in the wrestling community, I'm sure girls wrestling, women's wrestling, it's definitely a headline. But to the rest of the sports community, to the rest of the nation, women's wrestling is still very taboo in some parts of the country. So, I think exactly what you're saying. Keep getting the message out, keep communicating, keep educating, get people on board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still convincing the hearts and minds of many athletic directors, coaches, administrators, and parents all across the nation about girls wrestling.
One person at a time.
That's right.
I love it. Yeah. So, I did want to pick your brain a little bit, just depending on the audience that is watching. Although you never wrestled, you've been involved in so many different roles. And again, just that piece of how much you bring to the sport, never having competed over the years. Please share how somebody could get involved, whether it's male or female, whether it's a parent, whether it's just a fan in the community, how can they help grow the sport? How can they get involved? Because sometimes, in the wrestling community, it can be very intimidating. So what would be some advice?
Advice. Well, number one, the sport of wrestling is intimidating in many different ways. And, I started out as women's gymnastics coach at Central Michigan University. Finished college, got my master's, kept going across the country from North Carolina, Massachusetts, over to Michigan. And the wrestling room was right across the hall, and I knew quite a few of the wrestlers. John Matthews, who was an Olympian in 76 and 80, Tom Minkle in 1980. And that's actually where I met my husband, because I was running a program and they came in and needed the crash mat. So I started out pretty much using my expertise as a gymnastics coach in terms of not only the tumbling, which a lot of wrestlers in other countries do a lot of gymnastics. You guys do a lot of gymnastics, but the stretching and the flexibility was a key point. So not only did I meet my husband, but he invited me in to start using my skills, and we would be at a roll team practice and he'd go, hey guys, she's doing your gymnastics, she's doing your stretching. He never, and this was back in the 70s, he never even hesitated that I was a female. But so for me, I used my expertise and kind of walked in the door a bit instead of just being, the wife on the sidelines necessarily. But we know that there's so many great coaches in our sport that never wrestled. And for me, they're good with students. They're good with athletes. They understand why the athlete wants to be there. So the coaching skills, they can be mentored, they can be assistant coaches. They can be, parents that are on the sidelines just watching every week and understanding. They can watch video films. They can go through USA Wrestling's coaching program. There's so much knowledge and education out there that anyone can access now. And many times, like during COVID, USA Wrestling had their programs open to be bronze level certified for free. So for me, it's about mentoring. For me, it's sitting right beside, I did for many years beside my husband and beside my daughters, because wrestling is challenging. Gymnastics is a set of skills. It's pretty much, they're all in the book, and you try to do all these skills and put them together. And wrestling, it's like the ABC of skills, not only in English, but in Arabic and in Japanese and in Chinese. I mean, it's like that many skills, and there's that many more skills. And it was like always mind boggling, but understanding and learning basics, you know, you can take you a good ways, and basics we know is so critical. So I think get in the room, talk to coaches about mentoring, listen, watch, do the USA Wrestling coaches courses. I think there's just lots of ways. If you're excited and you want to be with kids and have a son or daughter, we know how many sons have their fathers come in as coaches and have learned the sport. And we're going to have that many young parents that are females that are also going to come in and start sitting on those sidelines and sitting in that chair beside the head coach, and they're going to learn. So we're going to grow the sport with wonderful women officials and coaches as well. Hopefully I didn't wander around that mountain too many ways on that, but I just think there's so many ways we can get involved. And again, the bottom line is we want to educate students. We want to introduce them to our sport. We want them to love our sport and to share it with more and more people in their communities.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I like what you said. You stepped in with your expertise, and there's so many times that I've met, you know, either a parent or a young coach, or maybe someone didn't wrestle, and they fell in love with the sport. They wanted to be around it. And, you know, they say, you know, oh, I never wrestled, or I never made it that far. Maybe I wrestled 1 year. And, you know, so many times they discount their value, like being a mentor, you know, or going in and meet the coach. What are the needs of the team, you know, and just getting connected in that way. So I think to your point is there's something that somebody can bring to the table, whether it's admin skills or, you know, connecting people or events or whatever that looks like. And, you know, it doesn't just have to be maybe in a coaching role, but the way you stepped in with gymnastics and there was a connection there. So that's a really cool testament of you were not a part of the wrestling community at the time, but now look where you've gotten to.
Amazing. I would have never, ever have dreamed in 1.5 million years that I would be what I'm doing now. But anyway, it's wonderful. Joy to serve.
It's amazing. And, you know, I know you talked a little bit about where you started. What are some of the roles you've had over the years? And especially, you know, as your girls have grown up, you know, being in California, what have some of those roles look like for you?
So pretty much started out, you know, as that parent sitting alongside my husband, middle school. I taught elementary physical education, and for middle school at first, and then elementary physical education in our Cabrillo Unified near Half Moon Bay, California. So from there, once the girls went to high school and wanting to have that girls program, and there were just a few tournaments to start out when Sarah was wrestling, but helping to organize that, helping to be the liaison with the administration, creating the schedule. And then as more and more tournaments came by, you know, Catherine never wrestled boys in high school. We went to all those girls tournaments, and I was pretty much the head coach. I was in the practices. I took the girls to the competitions. Of course, I always had Lee beside me to help coach, or one of the other assistants from the boys team. Sarah and Catherine would come along at times if they were there after they graduated, but pretty much help to organize, work with the schedules, just be that liaison person with the high school. So I always appreciated the help in the corner. That's without a doubt. So, but loved doing that. And then as Lee went on coaching at Menlo College and the girls went there, I was actually a volunteer assistant coach at Menlo. And the majority of my time was helping with all the travel, you know, organizing that, the rooms, airline tickets, being there, being that extra administrator with whatever is needed. A lot of videoing. I think I lived about 10 years of wrestling, high school, college, and any national, international. I was the person behind the video camera. So once USA Wrestling started videoing everything, my girl said, "Mom, you don't have to be behind that camera anymore. You can actually watch without being through the lens." But videoing and analyzing and getting videos to the athletes was a big part of what I did. So yeah, all those roles. So a lot of fun through the years with all those different levels.
And then I'm sure fan.
Oh, always a fan. Always a fan. Woo! Yeah, exciting, very exciting to be a fan.
Yeah, I remember meeting Catherine in 2004, and it was the summer of Fargo. And that was one of the first, well, maybe third or fourth event.
Mm-hmm.
I had an all girls wrestling event that I had participated in, and Catherine was on that team. So that was still all really new for me. And little did I know your family background and everything that entailed. So that was the beginning of our friendship, and really so. So a question I had for you, I know that you have been doing a lot of educating when it comes to sanctioning high school girls wrestling in each state. I wanted to pick your brain. If there is a female out there watching this and she is in a state that is sanctioned, but maybe is the only girl on her team or maybe in her region, what's your best advice for her as far as training and competing in that state?
Okay. So a sanctioned state right now, or a non-officially sanctioned state, I mean, we've got 28 states right now. We have 29. We're just waiting for that final vote from the board of directors at the end of this month. For me, whether you're in a state that's had a tournament for a long time, like the top six or the first six in 20 years ago, or whether you're in one of those brand new 22 states that have just said yes in the past 2 years, I think the important thing is just to walk in that door and to be able to say, if there are no other girls there, if she's the first girl, I think you just need to have that courage, to be that one courageous girl, to walk into that room and just let them know that you're there, you want to participate, you want to be involved. And I think now there is so much media out there, there's so much information, and yet it's still small. Compared to the number of boys, I think we're about 11% high school wise. Girls' numbers are about 11% of the total number of boys. We're at right about 30,000 girls this year. We have doubled that number in 3 years. So a lot of coaches are aware, but we still have a lot of coaches that are like a little apprehensive. As a lot of people like to say, they're uncomfortable. It's the fear of the unknown, what's going to happen. And I think right now, if she's aware of the media, if she can find those resources that are out there, if she can find another girl on another high school team, if she can connect with the resources online, Wrestle Like a Girl, Lucha Fit, if she can find videos, if she might have to help educate that coach. She might have to educate that team. So she's kind of got multiple roles that should not have to carry on her shoulders. She really shouldn't. She should be a high school athlete going from biology to science, or biology to math, and then, hey, I want to wrestle. I want to walk into this high school wrestling room and wrestle. I know girls are wrestling across the nation, but she may have to carry a lot of good information. I love Andrea Yamamoto's One Courageous Girl, and I think my advice would be yourself. Walk in. You don't have to be one of the boys. You bring your qualities as a female into that room that are just as important to be your feminine person, and to know that wrestling room is going to embrace you and just go in with a lot of love and a lot of gutsy oomph. I'm going to get in here and do this. It's just such a great sport. We know all the attributes that are there for every young girl and boy that walk into a wrestling room. And we know the parents that afterwards, after their child gets involved, they're like, wow, this has made a difference in my child's life. So just know it might be tough. The welcome mat might not be clearly visible, but just kind of kick the door open and walk in and say, I'm here to stay. So bring a friend, bring 2 friends, bring 3 friends, walk in with other young girls, but look for the resources. I think now there's so many out there, you can really learn a lot and reach out to other athletes that are young ladies in the sport that'll give you a lot of direction.
Yeah, you had mentioned Lucha Fit, which Catherine has put out so much good content on there, very specific to girls wrestling, to women's wrestling. She's really shared so much of her path and career, and she brings on a lot of different perspectives, and I think that has been a great resource that is not, I think, been fully used. And like you said, wrestle like a girl as well. And the resources are out there. It is tough to find, but you know, I think 10 years ago, when you're trying to find a college program, you couldn't find a list.
Yeah, or even a schedule. Even coaches in the state going, there's a schedule. We have a schedule in the state. That's one of our recommendations. Put the schedule out there from the state office. Make sure every coach is aware, whether they're taking advantage of it or not. Make sure they're aware and they have the information. So that's been a part of what we've done. Just educate, you know, get the resources out there. Girls need to be visible. Our visibility, even though it's grown so much in the scope of the real world, it's still very, very small. So we need to keep the visibility going.
Yeah, I love that. I like the one courageous girl. Oh, there's so many out there. And when I had heard, you know, Andrea use that phrase, you know, I think, right, your girls were the one courageous girl. You know, I was that one courageous girl.
Sure.
And
Right.
did not know what I was doing. But when I heard that, you know, I thought, wow, it did take courage. I didn't know it at the time. Maybe it was, you know, ignorance is bliss at the time. You know, it does take a lot of courage and being that only female. And I think that is a big piece. Bring someone along with you, you know, and find that person. So
Girls want to be involved in combat sports. You know, we see the MMA now. It's very visible. We see the other martial arts, and girls want to be involved in that. So we need to kind of, you know, reset our thinking a little bit that, yeah, this is a wonderful spot for girls to be in. And I'm just going to throw in another part. Ian McDonald, who's up in Canada, back in the 90s, you know, Canada was a little ahead of us, but Ian said, when I brought girls wrestling onto our campus, the administration's view of the program changed. Teachers' view changed. Classified staff, certificated staff, everybody all of a sudden saw this as this co-ed sport, and it elevated the sport of wrestling in everybody's eyes as a co-ed sport. He said, we were no longer those sweaty, hairy, gnarly-eared guys, you know, in that wrestling room, you know, that everybody was like, I'm not sure if I want to walk in that room. Whoa, you know. So bringing the girls in made such a difference. So we know that's going to happen. And that allows that community, when we want to grow wrestling as a sport, when those parents and all the people in her community see her in that wrestling world, they also want to join. And that's going to mean more boys are going to come into the sport as well as young ladies in the sport. We need to elevate our sport as a total.
that's, yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree 100%. And maybe just the flip side of that question, what would be your advice to a young female who wrestles on her team, is the only girl, and the state has not officially sanctioned girls wrestling?
You know, there's a point at which you and your coach need to sit down and you need to decide, what are your goals? Parents need to be involved. What are the goals for that year? Do you just want to learn the sport? And sometimes we take a step back going, wait a minute, you know, if we're on a high school team, we're going to compete. But maybe that's a growing year. Maybe that's a year to get in and learn the sport and look around your state. I think there's tournaments in every single state. If not tournaments in your state, there are states adjacent to you that allow you in the high school season to go to a state next door, across the border that's just next to you. So I think finding out what's available, working with the coach and your parents and saying, can I attend 2 or 3 girls tournaments this year? You know, how can that work? Can the parents be the volunteer coaches? Pretty much, even though I was staff at our high school, that's what we did. We just started taking the girls to all the tournaments. It was not really something that was like, you know, just truly, it was official, but yet we just made it happen. So I would encourage her to sit down and what can I do? You know, do I want to compete this year? Do I want to compete against the boys? What is her weight? You know, are there other athletes in that room that she can actually have good training sessions with? And usually the coaches manage all that, you know, just like yourself. You know how to pair people up and work with novice wrestlers that are coming into your room every year. So I think it's important to sit down and plan out the goals. Just don't walk in and assume, but come in and ask. And that may help that coach say, well, I better find out what's going on for girls in my state, you know? And I'll tell you, the coaches' stories are so phenomenal. The coaches get so excited when the girls come in and they actually go, okay, this is really cool, you know? So we kind of laugh. There's the boys' bus and the girls' bus, and the boys get on the bus, the hoods are up, the headphones are on, and they're listening to music, and they're just going to the tournament. And the girls' bus, hey, there's music going, and there's hair braiding, and you've got everybody's painting fingernails, and the coaches are like, what? But it's just they love it. They love it. The coaches' stories are the best when they just say that when they embrace girls wrestling. It's like, this is the best thing ever. And what's it all about? Supporting these young adults, these young high school students, male and females, in their life as they come through high school, giving them that sport, that community, that place to belong. Wow, how many of our young people need that place to belong? In wrestling, that wrestling room is it. There's the community door. Open it up and step in. Just a marvelous place. Nobody regrets it. Nobody regrets it. They may have had a tough time. It may have been challenging. They may have never made varsity, but they never regret it, right, Jess? They just don't.
Yeah, and wrestling's a no-cut sport, so.
All weights, all sizes. We like to say there's not many people recruiting those young ladies that are, 100 pounds and 5'1". They're not going out for basketball, and that's usually the other winter sport. As well as those upper weight young ladies that there's a place for them. Oh my gosh, it's a fantastic place for them to get involved in sport. What a wonderful place to just grow that self-esteem and leadership skills. And think about our young males and our young women are together in that room, becoming leaders together, and what that does just for our future of, our young adults in this world. It's important. Seeing each other as leaders side by side.
Yeah, I agree. I think the most valuable thing that you said about that is your support system, your parents in, talking to the coach, and the larger you can make that support system. And, there might be a piece of that maybe, a mom may not be on board or the coach may not be on board, but you can find those people who are going to support you. And even if that's outside of your state or outside of your region, the wrestling community is small, but it's a tight-knit community. You can find somebody who will connect you with somebody, and there's this opportunity, and there's definitely someone willing. And I think it really ties into the point we talked about earlier of, like you said, sometimes it's taking, the athletes to the tournament, it's just someone willing to do that and support these athletes, and they feel important, they feel valued just because someone would take the time to take them to compete, to get these resources or opportunities that they didn't have. So I think that's such a great piece. Build your team and that support system, and then write those goals down and share that with them. That's really cool. That's not easy to do. So courageous girl out there.
Yes.
Easy, but it's worth it. Yeah. So the last thing, Joan, is there anything that we should know about you or,
about me?
Yeah.
Hey, I climbed a lot of trees when I was growing up. I grew up on a farm in North Carolina. Here's my favorite. My brother and I came from a family of 7. We would have been the first ninja warriors. We would have been the first ninja warriors. We had a barn that our grandfather built. I grew up on the farm. My mother was born in the house I grew up in. And this barn had almost 3 stories, and we played tag in it. And if you touched the ground, you were out. So we climbed, we hung, we crossed over, rafters. We dropped down from loft to loft. We went out a window, but we couldn't touch the ground. We had to go in the next window and come back up through where the ponies were from the, outside, and the stables on this side. Well, Jessica, it would have been a lot of fun. And I would have definitely been this character as the American Ninja Warrior. Here I am with my 60s glasses. But we did. We played. Every time I see American Ninja Warriors, I went, we did that. We did all that in our barn, and almost died several times. But I remember some scary things trying to get up on top. My brother could run across the top of this barn. That was at least 4 stories up. It was scary. I never got up there.
You were a gymnast and a climber. I mean,
right. Trees, did routines in trees, lived in a tree, lived on the ponies, lived in the barn. So that's a little bit about my background. So.
You would have made a phenomenal wrestler. I'm just going to tell you that now.
Oh, I would have. It would have been fun. It would have been fun to be involved in wrestling. Yeah, but yeah, I have to say, wrestling has been, you know, just in my heart for so long. For so long, it's just a part of our breathing, everyday breathing. Yeah, just like you. You know what that's like.
Yeah, and I just love it, and the passion that you have. So thank you just for sharing it. And I love that you just are open about what you're doing, your passion for the sport, your family, and, you know, anyone that has had questions, you know, I think you're definitely a person who's easy to approach and share that information. So, you know, I think it's invaluable, and I appreciate you, and I'm excited to have you on the board and just see what the future holds. So I appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm sure we'll have to do another episode and see where we're at in another year.
That's right. That's right. The growth. Think of the growth in the next 3 to 5 years. It could be just amazing, amazing. It's so exciting to think about that. So, thanks for having me on, Jessica. It was a lot of fun. And anybody that wants to contact me or Andrew Yamamoto, because Andrew and I work hand in hand. You know, we're just partners in crime, and just love to reach out to anybody. So please get a hold of us, and we'd love to spend lots of time. We talk a lot on the phone. Lots and lots.
That's great. Thank you so much. And that concludes our episode of Moments Off the Mat. Thank you for joining us.